Hey everybody, welcome back to JT Channel, and just a few minutes ago I finished watching Boom! Okay, not that one. But I just got finished watching, was that good English? I don't know, but Godzilla Minus One. I just finished it a few minutes ago, and I figured I wanted to get on here. Well, I figured I should jump on here and do a review as close to watching it as possible, because I feel like I have a lot to talk about. Again, yeah, repping the Godzilla shirt over here, because I've been a huge Godzilla fan pretty much my whole life. If you hear weird noises in the background, my daughter is watching Mickey Mouse. But when I was barely young enough to have memories, my dad showed me King Kong vs. Godzilla. And actually, if you backtrack a little before that, my very first giant monster movie was Gorgo. We'll delve into this another time, but I just wanted to point out that when I was really, really little, like some of my earliest memories, I watched Gorgo. And then my dad was like, oh, you like giant monsters? Check this out. And it was King Kong vs. Godzilla, and the rest is history. Last time. Okay, so I'm wiping my nose a lot and my eyes because, man, is that movie so emotional. We'll talk about the story first. Spoilers. If you haven't seen Godzilla Minus One, it's on Netflix. Spoiler alert. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to decide if you're going to watch this whole video or not. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holy shit. All right, there's my big reaction to it is holy shit. What a movie. Let's talk about the story a little bit. The main character, who honestly, I'm not going to try to pronounce their names, just because I don't want to sit here and just sound like an idiot. But you know the main character, his story is just, it's so good. It's one of the best human stories in all of Godzilla. Maybe the best. I'm not entirely sure. Because I've seen every Godzilla media ever now, officially. Minus One was the only one that kind of like slipped away from me. I finally watched it. It's November 1st, so real close to Godzilla's birthday. Happy 70th, guy. I'm going to probably make a big Godzilla video for Godzilla's birthday this weekend, just so you're all aware. But his story was so good from the very opening, where you learn about him being a kamikaze pilot that kind of chickened out of the kamikaze thing. And then Godzilla attacks when he's just kind of like a mutant dinosaur. And then he, couldn't fire. He was too scared. And then he meets that girl who has a kid that's not hers, but is now, which I thought was a great thing. And, the story just moved along smoothly, I think. I cried at least 4 times. And that might be the most I've ever cried watching a Godzilla movie. I cried when I thought she was dead, when his first nuclear, it does have like a nuclear explosion. We're talking about his heat ray, the first time he did that, and she pushed him into there. I cried when I thought he was going to die, when he left Akiko behind. I can say Akiko. I cried when I was right about the ejection seat, which we'll talk about in a second, and then I cried in the end of the movie when I found out she was alive. But throughout the story, the story was perfect. You had, and some people complain that in monster movies there needs to be more monsters than there are humans. But as long as the story is good, who cares? And I'm not going to sit here and compare Minus One to the Monsterverse. I love the Monsterverse. I love Minus One. I love all Godzilla. I love the Netflix anime trilogy. I don't think there's a bad Godzilla movie out there. Yes, that includes Godzilla's Revenge, the one that's like all in a kid's head or whatever. Again, we'll talk about it later or on another video. But a lot of people's complaints about the Monsterverse were the human characters, you couldn't relate to them. And I'll admit that it is hard. It is hard to like get gripped by the human story in the Monsterverse, but not in Minus One. Good God Almighty, is it easy? You feel all the emotions they're going through. I mentioned the ejection seat when he was talking to his old friend, Mr. Tachiban or something like that. That's pretty close. I know that's close. And he was like, yeah, here's this, and here's how you activate the bombs. Oh, and one more thing. And the camera backed off. I freaked out. I'm like, oh my God. I feel like he's telling him about an ejection option in case he doesn't want to die. And then, of course, it was revealed later on that he told him to live. He said, live. He had finally changed his mind on all that. So that was cool. Like I said, I bawled my eyes out when I found out she was still alive. And the closing shot of the movie, I guess that's a good segue into talking about the G-Man himself. Oh man, did he look good! I really like the Godzilla was just an angry mutant dinosaur, and then the nuclear test turned him into Godzilla. That's the story of my favorite Godzilla movie, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from 1991. We'll talk about it more in a different video. I'm kind of like bouncing in these little plot points about Godzilla, but I do plan on doing a big 70th anniversary video for Godzilla. Now that I've watched Minus One, I'm all caught up. But I love that story. He wasn't a benevolent dinosaur or anything. He was angry. He popped onto Odo Island, killed a bunch of people, and then went about his business or whatever happened. I love the fact that you see him regenerate. You see his face blown off, and then it just... I love that. God, he just looks so good. I want to talk more about Godzilla. I love the heat ray. It's interesting that they do call it a heat ray, even though we've always called it an atomic ray. But I love how his spines pop up and then slam down. That's how he fires it. And like I said earlier, when it hits, it's a nuclear explosion. And I think that's pretty cool. It was a little... I did giggle a little when she pushed him, and then he was just there surviving. I'm like, okay, so it like stopped right at that building. But I get it. It was for the story. It was a brief, and then I just got over it. I like how Godzilla wasn't really stupid, but he also kind of was. Like, Godzilla's never been an idiot, but he's also not a genius. He lets things distract him or whatever. I felt like there was a few calls to other Godzilla movies, like I mentioned, the dinosaur thing from versus King Ghidorah in 91. And then when they're wrapping the Freon tanks around Godzilla, that music sounded like it was sampled from the original King Kong versus Godzilla back in 1964, I think, is when it was, which was my introduction to Godzilla. So I thought that was really cool. I'm sure I missed a few things. Obviously his roar, the music, that's all classic. His roar, he has that new deep growl roar in this movie in Minus One, but it ends with the classic ending, the classic closing roar that Godzilla used to do. Gosh, I don't know if there's much. I said we had a lot to talk about, but I think I covered it for the most part. It was a really good movie. It was one of the best Godzilla movies ever, for sure. I get why people like it so much. For me, I've always been a bigger fan of Godzilla versus, which is why I like the MonsterVerse as much as I do. The Godzilla movies where he's just taking on humanity are good. They're fine. But they're few and far between, for one. That's why Minus One was such a breath of fresh air in the Godzilla universe. We haven't had a proper Godzilla is just fighting humanity, I think, since Godzilla 1985. So that tells you how long it's been. But this was really good. Minus One was really good. I think it's definitely a return to form. And for those of you who don't know, just recently, like yesterday, I think, like on Halloween or like the last couple days of October, Toho announced that there is going to be another Godzilla movie, and the guy that directed Minus One is coming back. He's writing the next Godzilla movie. They didn't confirm or deny if it's a sequel to Minus One, but I mentioned earlier the closing shot. After they did the Freon thing to Godzilla, trying to freeze him, the main character, again, I'm not gonna sit here and butcher his name, but he flew his plane into Godzilla's mouth. It exploded, and Godzilla literally fell into chunks into the sea. Well, after you find out the chick's alive, you get an underwater shot of one of these chunks falling and regenerating, which is a callback to Regenerator G1. So I'm glad that the director is coming back. He blew it away. He blew me away. This movie rocked. I'd give it out of 5, out of 10, 10. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If I were to take anything away, I'm trying. I always try to find, well, that's not true. I always try to find reasons to like movies, not dislike movies. If there is something I dislike about a movie, I can usually push it aside. I mean, that's another conversation for another day. There are movies out there that people think are complete drivel and they can't stand, and I think they're wonderful. Morbius. No, So I guess that's it. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you've seen Godzilla Minus One, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Do not yell at me about the MonsterVerse or other Godzilla movies. Just talk about Minus One. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a Godzilla anniversary video because I feel like I don't talk about how much Godzilla means to me enough. I did a review of the new Empire, the most recent MonsterVerse movie, earlier this year, so go check that out. I love that movie. But that's it. Like I said, look for that new Godzilla video. I can't think of much else to say, so until next time, this is JT Channel. I am JT, and I will see you on the next one.